In this video I'm setting up launch control and traction control in the EMU Black ECU that powers my Astra VXR. Right, so the car's up to temperature. I've just set launch control always active with a vehicle speed limit of 1 km/h. So we don't have to press a switch or do anything to get it to switch on. We just have to not be moving. I'm using the default settings basically for now, and we'll see if it's too ridiculous or needs turning up, needs turning down, and what happens basically in a second when we test it. Should we give it a go then? So that's the default setting. It is making boost, I'll give it that. But what if we bring the hard cut RPM down? Let's see. I'm just playing with things here. So this is fuel cut. So we want fuel and ignition, which is a bit of both. I'll go back to the default settings for everything else. Make permanent. So that's a bit more aggressive now. Not exactly sure what other settings to try, really. So that's a bit more aggressive. And what if we make it just ignition cut now? I mean, it works, so I think the only thing to do now is test it. I'm going to put these values back to what they were because they don't seem to make much difference, and I don't want to mess with anything too much. Make permanent. Shut the laptop. In sport mode. Give it a go. With the noise, but it is making boost, and now you can see we're struggling not to spin the wheels. So the only other thing to do, other than a driver mod to make me better at launching it, is we can enable an ignition cut traction control. What that's going to do is allow us to basically cut the spark to stop the wheels spinning. So I'll enable that now. Traction control type, speed based, spark cut, minimum RPM to activate 1000, and we'll see what those default settings give us. I didn't make it permanent, so I've just done a burnout and not gone anywhere. So what I eventually realised, and any tuner watching this might cringe, is that the defaults didn't have any actual spark cut for the launch control, nor did they really for the traction control either. That's why it didn't do anything, and that's why the launch control sounded pretty boring. So what I went ahead and did is I opened up the spark cut table and just added a spark cut around the hard cut RPM. So at 4000 RPM, when it starts to presumably cut fuel, it's now also cutting 85% ignition and sort of ramping up to that from 3800 revs. And that seems like a pretty good balance of like, it's popping, but it's not banging and shooting flames and knocking the cats out. Although I don't know if there's much of them left at this point. So that's the launch control setup. For traction control, what I went ahead and did is I set up a pretty aggressive ignition retard as we start to reduce torques. This is percentage torque reduction, and this is ignition retard in degrees, up to 20 degrees, and then ramp it back down to 15. And essentially, as we want more torque reduction after 5%, we then start to introduce a bit of cut, and we limit that cut at 15%, just so it's not too aggressive, because once again, in the video, you'll see it was shooting loads of flames. This isn't the exact settings that I had in the video. I had something like 33% cut, and it was just too much. Like at full throttle, that's a lot of fuel to not ignite. It's basically chucking 100 horsepower worth of fuel out the exhaust and burning it, hence why I don't think I've got a cat left in the car. So yeah, if you wanted to set this up yourself, this is pretty much everything I did. And this version, although I haven't got any footage of it, is nice and smooth and just gives you enough sort of interference to keep the car stuck, especially in the dry, and in the wet it at least stops it running away from you and just spinning the wheels on the spot. And it really helps with getting that smooth launch. I made the launch a bit spicier. I've added some cut to traction control. No idea if it'll work. I might have to come back another day with some tweaked settings, because I don't want to keep just making noise over here. So let's see if this new setting works. So that is a lot better, but it's not very smooth. But we're getting there. So I'm going to set the camera up outside the car. Of what it's like now. Hell of a lot better than it was just, well, no traction control before. That definitely does it. It's just not super smooth. Well, in that mid-range, it's perfect. Since it was tuned, the VXR has one obvious problem. Can you tell what it is? So yeah, the cold start is pretty bad, but it's a different day. The car's stone cold again, and I'm gonna try and tune my own cold start. So it's not the car's fault, it's not the tuner's fault. Basically when it was tuned, it was like 25, 26 degrees, so that's the only place that could really be tuned right. It's impossible to tune cold start at 15 degrees when you've only got the car when it's 25 degrees, unless you've tuned that engine before, or a very similar one. You're just guessing, basically. I could just send him logs and get it tweaked, but it's good to learn, so I wanna do it myself. So it's a different day, the car's stone cold again, and what I'm going to do is probably add just like 10% to the fuel around this area while cranking, see what it does. If it doesn't make a difference, then I can put it back and try going the other way, although I suspect it needs more fuel, not less, because engines are generally less efficient when they're cold, so they need more fuel to produce the same power to actually turn over. And yeah, we'll see if this helps, basically. Let's just hope this makes a difference and I can fine tune it over the coming days. So there'll be a lot of back and forth, but let's see what difference this made, I guess. Let's try and start it up. That seems a lot better. I wonder if we're just going to have to add more fuel to the whole table, because it wasn't super quick at starting when it was hot either.
But yeah, that's way better. So that was a good change. We'll just have to come back again tomorrow and see if we can get it on the first try next time. Right, so it's a different day. Plugged into the ECU again, and we're just going to add basically the same again to the cranking fuel down low, and then what we'll do eventually is smooth out this area, some interpolation or something, just to get it to start well in between hot and cold. And if this is too spicy, we'll back it off a bit, but as you can see, the change we made last time really sped it up, and it's been starting a lot better since. It's just not quite as good as stock. So we'll try this out now. Let's save another version and make the change permanent. Oh, and the next thing I'll do as well after this is when the engine is cold in after start enrichment or warm up, one of the two, just add a little bit more fuel because it wants to stall when I set off at the minute. So between 10 and 20 degrees, it might just want slightly more fuel. I may just increase all of these by 1 and make that permanent, and we'll start it up and see how it goes. Still not instant, but it is better than it was. I keep playing with it, and if I overdo it, it's easy enough to just dial it back to a previous version. It's definitely more responsive now, so if I put the clutch in and go to reverse off the drive, that isn't nearly as easy to stall. I couldn't do that before. So, improvement. I'm going to drive it now and do the spicy stuff, which you'll see earlier in the video, basically, with the launch control and traction control. I think that's pretty much it for this video. I did make one more tweak that I didn't record, and now the car starts pretty smooth every time. Again, not factory instant, but definitely acceptable, so I'm happy with it. The next video on the VXR, I'm fitting a Tejas CC3 Android head unit with digital, Wi-Fi, 4G, and real dash gauges that connect to the ECUMaster ECU in the VXR and show boost, timing, coolant temperature, oil temperature, all of that stuff in real time. So subscribe if you don't want to miss that. And remember to like, leave a comment and all that stuff if you liked the video. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Every day.